Okay, everybody. Hola, bienvenidos otra vez. Welcome again. Today we're going to be looking at Panorama Lesson 1.2, basically about the numbers from 1 to 30 and using those numbers in different activities. First, we're going to review quickly what we learned in the last section about introducing yourselves. So in the white box are some common phrases that you're going to use, that you would use to introduce yourself, and then we'll do the activity in green. I'm going to play the audio from the online section of the book so you can get a different feeling for some pronunciation of these different phrases. So again, I want you to repeat wherever you are, repeat after the audio on these different phrases.
Presentaciones.
¿Cómo se llama usted? ¿Cómo te llamas? Me llamo. ¿Y tú? ¿Y usted?
Remember that difference between familiar and formal.
Mucho gusto. El gusto es mío. Encantado. Encantada. Igualmente. Este es. Esta es. Le presento a. Te presento a. El nombre.
Okay, so just some quick reviews. We talked in the last section about tú versus usted. So that's a familiar versus a formal form. If you don't remember that, go back and look at that before you go on. And then also you'll notice there are two times when we've got the gender changing. We've got encantado or encantada. So if the speaker, if you identify as masculine, you say encantado. If you identify as feminine, encantada. And then este and esta es. Este is the pronoun for a male, for masculine, and esta for a female. So if you're saying este es mi hermano, or esta es mi madre, esta es mi amiga, if the person is feminine, then you would use esta. And then again, le and te presento a, again, formal and the familiar forms. What I want you to do is pause the video, and you're going to write on a piece of paper or type out as if you were role-playing introducing yourself to somebody. So 5 different criteria. Introduce yourself, ask their name, ask how they're doing, say it's nice to meet you, and then say goodbye. And I'll just give you a tip that having done this will be beneficial to you. At some point, we'll have a quiz with basically the same thing. So having done it will help out. So pause the video, go through this exercise, and then come back. All right, hopefully that went okay. Again, review, these are just good phrases. You're gonna have to just memorize them. But the more that you use them in different situations, the more that you will remember them. Okay, we're gonna go on to numbers, and we're gonna look at the numbers from 0 to 30. I put a little exercise back on Moodle with the count from Plaza Sésamo. So just the more different ways you hear it and different rhythms and things will help you to remember. And you'll see patterns in this. We're gonna go through and listen to a native Spanish speaker say these numbers. And again, I want you to repeat after this so you can hear yourself as you reading these numbers from 0 to 30.
Números 0 a 30. 0. 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 13. 14. 15.
16. 17. 18. 19. 20. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
All right, something interesting here about these numbers. If you look, starting with number 16, you'll notice that the word 16 is broken down to 16, so 10 and 6. Usually in Spanish, we say and with the letter Y, E. When we write it like this, it gets substituted for with an I. But so 16 is literally 10 and 6. 17, 18, but they're written out as one word. Same thing with 20, 20, but then you got 21, 22, 20, so 20 and 1, 22, 23, all the way through. So after you've learned 1 through 9, and really 1 through 19, then you just have to learn the tens, and then you can go all the way. So 30 is 30, 31 is 31, 32, 40 is 40, and we'll get to those numbers, but just as you look forward to, that's why you're spending this time learning now, so you can develop these patterns. So here you have the numbers 0 through 30, and you'll notice that they follow that pattern. In Spanish, there's no such thing as a teen. In English, we talk about teenagers because they are the people whose age has the word teen in it. There's no such concept in Spanish. There's no common theme through those numbers. So the concept of teenagers doesn't really exist in Spanish. We use the word joven, like we learned in vocabulary. So jóvenes, that means young people. That basically is that same equivalent of a teenager.
Números.
Okay, one thing to remember is that number uno and all the words that end in uno have more than one form. Before a masculine noun, it becomes un, and before a feminine noun, it becomes una. So again, we saw at the last lesson on gender that there's gender and numbers involved, and so uno is one of those numbers. So for example, un hombre or 21 hombres. So we're getting the un changes to uno changes to un when it's either by itself as number 1 or in the numbers ending in 1. And then una, the numbers that end in uno, changes to 21. So una mujer, 21 mujeres. You don't have to worry about the plural because the number 21 is already a plural number. So we don't say 21 mujeres, it's just 21, but it does change for gender. So uno can become un or una, and then before a noun, a collective noun, a plural noun, you can drop it down just to un if it's singular and masculine. Okay, we also have a couple different ways uno can also appear, the numbers that end in uno can also appear after a noun. So it says on the bottom bullet point, they're also used when the number follows a noun, even if the noun is feminine. So la lección uno, el estudiante uno. What's happening there is you're saying the lesson number 1, the word for number is número. So really you're saying la lección número uno, but you can take out the número and just say la lección uno. But that's why it stays in the form unos, because actually it's modifying the word number, but we're just taking out the numbers. So if it comes after the number, it's not very common, certainly not as common, but la lección uno just means la lección número uno, and el estudiante uno, so it won't change for masculine or feminine because the uno refers to the word nombre, or no, excuse me, número that we're leaving out. Okay, the next helpful word, especially with counting and asking numbers, is cuánto, which means how much. Cuántos means how many. So again, cuánto is going to change for number and for gender. So cuánto, cuántos, cuánta, and cuántas. So cuántos chicos hay en la escuela. So chicos is singular, is plural and masculine. So cuántos becomes plural and masculine. So cuántos chicos hay en la escuela, or cuántas chicas hay en la escuela. So cuánto is an interrogative word. It's a question word. It indicates that a question is following. So yeah, those forms of cuánto. Cuánto, cuántos, cuánta, cuántas. great helpful word. I mentioned it in one of the previous lectures, is the word I, H-A-Y. It's pronounced like I in English, or like A-Y-E, I if you're Scottish or Irish. The H is always silent, so it's just pronounced I. And I means is there or are there, as well as there is or there are. The difference is if it's in a question, right? You're asking a question, are there two students, versus a statement, there are two students. So the indication is the same thing. You're just either asking a question or making a statement. So I is a unique verb in all of Spanish. It doesn't change for number. I is a conjugation in plural and in singular. So I, it's a great way of asking, is there or are there? So if you look down below in the pictures, ¿Cuántos estudiantes hay? How many students are there? And then your answer, hay 6 estudiantes en la foto. So how many students are there? There are 6 students in the photo. ¿Hay chicos en la fotografía? Are there guys in the picture? And then one particular answer would be, hay 3 chicas y no hay chicos. Remember, we learned that chicos could be a group, indicating if there's even one person, one male in that group, it would be chicos. But so are there guys in the picture? Well, there are 3 girls and no male guys, no males. So hay chicos en la foto, hay 3 chicas y no hay chicos. So that's the great word I that you can only learn one conjugation for. And again, it has those 2 meanings. There is and there are, as well as are there and is there. Okay, now it's time for some practice. So you're going to go through the numbers and you're going to write down the name of the number. So again, pause here, write the name. So number 1 is number 7. How do you say 7 in Spanish? Write it out. Go all the way through 16. So pause for a second. And when you come back, we'll go through the answers and I'll have you repeat the words. Okay, hopefully you paused and went through and actually wrote out these words. Again, the more interactive you do this, the better off you're going to learn. So you're looking with your eyes, you're hearing with your ears, you're writing with your hands. It's going to really cement these words into your brain a lot faster than just going through quickly and thinking you'll get it later. So if you haven't paused it, pause it. Really, I recommend you go back and do it. But let's go through them together. So number 1, siete. Siete. Number 2, 16 is 16. 16. And again, I hope you're repeating it with me. Number 3, 29 is 29. 29. Number 4, 1 is uno. Uno. Number 5, 0 is cero. Cero. Number 6, 15 is quince. Quince. Number 7, 21, 21. 21. Number 8, 9, nueve. Nueve. Number 9 is 23, 23. 23. Number 10, 11 is once. Once. Number 11, 30 is 30. 30. Number 12, 4, cuatro. Cuatro. Number 13 is 12. Number 12, 12. Number 14, 28, 28. 28. Number 15, 14 is 14. 14. And number 16, 10 is 10. 10. Okay, so there's the exercise again. Looking, hearing, seeing, writing, pronouncing. You're going to involve all your senses there to learn those numbers. Okay, now we're going to look at just the math options here. Just super quick, just really just help you learn the numbers. We're not worried about math. To say plus, the plus is más, is more. The minus is menos, which means less. And equal sign is a conjugation of the verb ser. That is actually, I believe, our next lesson. And you would say son. So in the example in the weight box, 5 plus 3 equals, we would say in Spanish, 5 más 3 son, and then the answer. So what I want you to do again, I want you to pause. I want you to write out the answers to these 10 questions. I want you to actually write out the words. So 2 plus 15 equals, you can have the word for 2, más, word for 15, son, and then your answer. So pause, do a little bit of math in Spanish, and then come back. Okay, hopefully you're back with us. Let's go through these numbers together. So 2 plus 15 equals 2 más 15 son 17. Hopefully not many of you had to pull out a calculator for these. 2 más 15 son 17. 20 menos 1 son 19. 5 más 7 son 12. 18 más 12 son 30. 3 más 22 son 25. 6 menos 3 son 3. 11 más 12 son 23. 8 más 5 son... Ay, perdón, number 7, I skipped one in my brain. 7 menos 2 son 5. Sorry about that. 7 menos 2 son 5. Number 9, 8 más 5 son 13. 8 más 5 son 13. And number 10, 23 menos 14 son 9. Okay, so again, practice for your numbers, those three math functions there, más, menos, and son for equal, and give you a chance to use your numbers. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pause. Now you're going to apply those different vocabulary terms plus the numbers. The modelo here is hay tres maletas, which is the name for suitcases. So you're going to use the word I to say there is or there are. You're going to write down the number, the word for the number, and then the objects. If you don't really know what the picture is, and go back to your vocabulary. Number 1 is talking about pencils. Number 2, a map. Number 3, photos. Number 4, a girl. Number 5, hombres. Number 6 is tourists. Number 7 is mujeres. And number 8 is cuadernos, which is notebooks. So pause the video, write out the words, I, blank, word for pencils, and go through and then come back and we'll look at them together. Okay, so this was looking at 3 different concepts: the use of the word I, the use of numbers, and then the vocabulary that you've looked at in the last section. So don't feel bad if you had to look back, and especially on the vocabulary that you may not have quite mastered yet. Well, let's go through these answers. Number 1, hay 20 lápices. So you have to do math there as well. 20 lápices. Number 2, hay un mapa. So remember we said the word for map is el mapa, which means it's singular. So we're using uno, and when uno comes before masculine noun, it goes down to un. So hay un mapa. Número 3, hay 4 fotos. Número 4, hay una chica. Número 5, hay 17 hombres. Número 6, hay 6 turistas. Remember, turistas is collectively, so it's, even though there are women and men, you could go back and break it down into number of genders if you wanted to. Number 7, hay 24 mujeres. Y número 8, hay 30 cuadernos, 15 and 15. Okay? All right, so again, you're using a lot of different principles, and that's how you're going to cement these things that you're learning, is by applying them in a lot of different examples. And that's it for today. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, rewind, go back over any section that didn't really make a lot of sense to you, and we'll look at how to use these numbers in more different contexts. All right, thanks, guys.